Ladies and gentlemen, please, dear colleagues, be seated. We will be starting this EGPA 50th anniversary plenary panel after the wonderful panel we had this morning before lunch. So as you all know, we are celebrating half a century of the development of the public administration community of scholars who in Europe study the various aspects of public administration and public institutions. We are very happy to be here all together for this very successful anniversary conference. Merci, Monsieur le Président. With so many participants from so varied countries in Europe and from other continents and from the various sides of Europe, which is reflected in this panel this afternoon. On the occasion of this EGPA plenary, anniversary plenary, we will also, once again, we started yesterday, pay tribute to the memory of our dear Fabienne Maron, and we will have a special moment for that at the end of this panel. It makes sense when we talk about the history of 50 years since she was involved for half of these 50 years, for 24 years, in the development of our learned society and the community of scholars, the human community and epistemic community that we form all together, generations after generations. As it was recalled yesterday in the opening, the EGPA is an idea that whose genesis started before 1975, at the end of the 60s, but Geert will tell us more about that, with several European conferences hosted at Speyer Hochschule in Germany, a special school of public administration, which is in the Rhénane region and has some specific connections also with France and other countries, and is not exactly the same tradition as in former Prussia and in Berlin that were studied by Max Weber. So an interesting place Speyer is in terms of connections and making connections. Many of the important big names in those days, Morstein Marx, Heinrich Siedentopf, played a key role in that. Arne Liemans, who was the first serving president of EGPA, as from 1975 till 1987. Sapino Cassese, a very important big name from Italy, was there also, and Neville Johnson, Frederick Fernand Ridley, Kauko Sipponen, Jerzy Starodziak, Klaus König, of course, and all these founding fathers, not many mothers at that time. Things have changed, and we are so happy about it. And after Lehmanns and Cassese, Hugo van Hassel served as president in the 1990s. Jacques Ziller, my predecessor as a Frenchman, for a little period of 2 years. Ignaz Schnellen, whom I remember I met at Maastricht European Institute of Public Administration when I was seconded there. And there are other persons in the room who remember this period that the less than 20 years cannot know, famous song from Aznavour. Werner Jahn, of course, who played an important role with Geert, developing the European perspectives in public administration. Maybe you will refer to that, Geert, and there were important publications in that regard made during the last decade, I would say. Then we had, as another steward in this long chain with the steering committee members, Wim van der Donk, who was elected president of the EGPA in Toulouse when I hosted the first EGPA conference in 2010. And then he handed over to Eduardo Ongaro for 2 terms with my predecessor, and Eduardo, we worked together also with the steering committee at that time and the IIA Secretariat, organizing wonderful conferences, including a second one in Toulouse, 2015. And since 2019, with the 2 successive teams of colleagues, we handled EGPA through turbulences, because everything now is turbulent, and maybe we are provoking turbulences ourselves. Shame on us, or proud on us, I don't know. So in that period, long period, EGPA started with rather small conferences, and then developed, but kept its family format for long. And now we are, of course, having such big events like in Athens last year, was already a big turnover, but here we are making it much, much bigger, of course. And each time, thanks to the risk-taking spirit and team spirit of the host institutions. And when we talk of institutions, these are universities, because except a few times at a hotel, in Edinburgh, for instance, 10 years ago, or 11, we are very keen on having our conferences hosted at universities, because this is the alma mater. We are a learned society of academics, and it's really important for us to act in an academic environment and not like big conferences you may have in other countries we love and like and friends, in big hotels, because things are so big that only hotels can accommodate. I insist on that because each and every conference has been an endeavor and has been a joint venture and is and will remain between the organizing committee, the EGPA as an organization, and the ones who host and welcome us, always wonderfully, with different styles, of course, in different countries, but that's the beauty of it. All steering committees, I think, and I speak under the control of Geert, who was president of EGPA before me, we have always been keen on varying the countries, the cities, not always capital cities, but other university cities, but, and to go up north, south, east, west. And this is something very important, just to show that Europe, united in its diversity, of course, or disunited, like the United Kingdom, I refer to the plenary of this morning, are part of all this collective undertaking. So we are very happy to be here this afternoon for this plenary. We have 4 panelists that I'm very happy to introduce now. I will start with Patria de Julnes, who is a well-known scholar and also an expert and consultant in performance measurement, government capacity building, citizen-driven governance. Patria is a professor of public administration at the University of New Mexico, and it is in this capacity that we have invited her, the immediate past president, 2023-2025, of our dear partner association, the American Society for Public Administration, whose actual president and secretary general are also in the room. Je les salue amicalement. Patria is a fellow of the National Academy of Public Administration, NAPA, in the US. She has worked with governments and universities in Latin America, in Europe, Spain. I know you will be in Spain soon, later on this month, to improve education and practice in public administration, building partnerships to improve government capacity, support democratic governance, etc., etc. Very long CV, I make it very short. Then, Akobia here is the past president, the immediate past president of NISPASI, the network of institutes and schools of public administration and in Central and Eastern Europe. She's a dean and professor of international relations and governance at a very nice university, the Caucasus University in her country, Georgia, so Tbilisi, the capital city. And her research focused on post-conflict governance, unsurprisingly in this region of the world, on Europeanization, unsurprisingly in this country, on democratization, unsurprisingly in this country, and public administration in hybrid regimes. She has coordinated many higher education programs, including creating a Jean Monnet Center of Excellence for EU policy transposition in her country. She has also worked as a practitioner and top civil servant in the Ministry for Foreign Affairs of her country. So she has this double hat that Geert likes to underline, pra-academics, as many of us. We also serve as experts, etc., etc. Then Geert, of course, emeritus professor at the KU Leuven Public Governance Institute that he contributed to establish. Of course, past president of the EGPA, past president of the IIAS, one of the biggest names in our network, in our collectivity community, with so many publications that it is not necessary to mention here again, and reflections on PA reform trajectories and complexities and the neo-Weberian state and a few other important topics. And last but not least, Paul Joyce, my dear editor, publication director of the IIAS, associate at the Department of Public Administration and Policy, University of Birmingham, visiting professor in public management at Leeds Bouckaert University, took his PhD last year from the London School of Economics and Political Science, a great publisher, a great writer, many books. On the most recent books is Strategic Management and Governance, Strategy Execution Around the World, Routledge 2022. Other recent books include, with Andrew Mo, who is also in the room, Strategic Management for Public Governance in Europe 2018, Strategic Leadership in the Public Sector, several editions, Strategic Management in the Public Sector, several editions, also with our beloved and regretted Fabienne Maron and PS Ready, this excellent book in 2020, one of the first to be issued after the COVID crisis on good governance in a global pandemic, which contributed to the worldwide lesson learning from the experience of the pandemic. Thank you for having done that with Fabienne. Thank you to the four of you to be here with us to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the EGPA. So we have agreed on a format where we will discuss between the panelists and with the audience. So a few questions as a kind of warm-up, and then we will open to questions from the floor. So please prepare yourselves. I know it's digestion after heavy lunch. No, I'm kidding. So I'm sure you will have ideas on what we will discuss. So the first thing I would like to ask is, in nowadays world, very turbulent, transforming so quickly, what is, in your views, my fellow colleagues, the purpose and mission of learning societies in the domain of PA like ours? And I would like to turn first to Patria to start on that, and then to ECA, who are our the representatives of our sister associations, and then we will, Paul, Geert, and I, add things. Please, Patria.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I know that it's tough after lunch to be sitting, but that's okay. That means that you are, the fact that you're here is that you're really engaged and very interested in these conversations, and we hope to keep your engagement. The question that he asked, I think you sent it to us back in July, and I was, I've been thinking about this thing. What is really the role? What role do we play in particular in public administration? And at least from the perspective, I want to speak from the perspective of the American Society for Public Administration, just the fact that I grew up in the Society for Public Administration, the American Society, and then just finished serving, very honored to serve as as president. I just want to say that we have to keep doing, this is a very simple answer, we have to keep doing what we're doing. I mean, that's just the first thing, is that keep doing what we're doing. But the second piece of it is like, you got to put it on steroids. You got to amplify exactly what we're doing. For us, for example, at ASPA, we do have a responsibility to provide a forum to our members. We have a responsibility, And this is what we are responsible to our members. We have about 8,000 members in the society, and as a society, we provide a platform where academics, which is also what EGPA does, present their research and their findings. And then we have our practitioners who come and share their best practices. And that is a very important function that we have. The American Society for Public Administration focuses on promoting the value of public service. So again, at this time, at this moment in our lives, particularly coming from the United States, there is currently a culture war where the war is against public servants. And that's really what we hear is against public servants, against bureaucrats. And in reality, this is something that has been created by the political class. So this is the problem, though. As a society, we have this, we promote accountability, we promote professionalism, we promote ethics, and we promote social equity. The problem is that we are talking to ourselves. Okay, so we are in an echo chamber. And that is one thing that I see, but that's okay because we do have to serve our members, and our members come to us because they identify with the values that we promote: accountability, social justice, professionalism, and ethics. But then we have a responsibility, one, to also help to solve the problems. And while we think that we do that through our members, clearly it's not enough. And there is a huge discontent and a huge misconception about public servants. So one thing that I've been grappling with, and I know we have so many smart people here because I'm not smart enough to figure out how do we get out of our echo chamber and start talking to those who are not in the room. Because those people are making this decision and are the ones that are waging the war on public service. And the other thing that I would say is that we've been focusing, for example, on ethics. Now, there is a particular, the ethics, but then in that ethics, we need to define it more broadly because it is not just about what is legal, but it's also about what is right. And unfortunately, also, we need to, some people are weaponizing the same systems that we set up as guardrails against this, what some presentations yesterday talk about, these authoritarian regimes that are coming up. And so how do we have a responsibility to talk outside of our society. We need to continue promoting the value of the values and the value of public service, but we need to talk outside of our circle. And that may help us in some way to get more supporters, and somehow we can reach that political class that is causing, in my view, is causing these problems right now for us as citizens of the world right now, and as citizens of the United States right now. So that's been my short introduction.
Oh, thank you so much. Now I will turn to Eka with the same question.
First of all, greetings, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be part of this wonderful panel. So EGPA's 50 years, and you don't need to tell me how EGPA has positioned itself in the center of public administration, not only in Europe, but globally. But I can certainly tell you how EGPA's leadership and created knowledge has helped communities in transitional countries and in countries aspiring to be Europeanized and democratized. And of course, the key question is, what is the role of the learned communities? And in normal times, it is to curate the knowledge and to create the epistemic community and network, which has been done. But in times of backsliding, like in many corners of the world, certainly in Georgia, in times of backsliding, the mission of the learned community is dual, scholarship and protection, to protect the values and the merit-based civil service, which is under threat in many, many places. And Georgia's case is an illustration of that important mission, because in Georgia today, civil service is under a severe threat. Since December of last year, the laws have been changed in an emergency way. More than 800 civil servants were let go just for supporting Georgia's European way. There have been detentions. There are more than 80 innocent people behind the bars. And people have been in the streets protesting from the dead of winter through the heat of summer for 275 days to support Georgia's European way. And I think the role of professional learned societies, like Patricia has said, is to support people, professionals who need this assistance the most by continuing what our professional networks like NISPACI and EGPA have been doing, but to also definitely come out of the echo chambers and be more proactive in supporting, in researching the empirics of what is happening in Georgia, in continuing to write about how autocratization happens overnight or over a very short period of time, because as you well know, Georgia has been a trailblazing, reforming and performing country in Eastern Partnership, which is EU's neighborhood format, which was mainly about integration with the European Union. But since December 2023, now our country is a candidate country, but also at the same time, the fastest deteriorating legal and political situation in the country. So definitely do what we are doing, but do it more and more outside the confines of the academia, into the policy world and into the world of activism to defend the values that we stand for, both professionally and normatively.
Thank you so much, Eka, for sharing with emotion, and it is understandable, this double mission of scholarship, developing research and knowledge, but in a time of more darkness, knowledge production is not enough, unfortunately, and you stress that point also. We need to go towards outside people, and even to start with our students, because in many cases we lecture them and we tell them things on the grounds of common sense, agreed knowledge, which is not anymore common sense. So we also have to question on our common sense. It is not only in Georgia that there is democratic backsliding, there is also democratic backsliding among educated students in very old democracies like France, like Italy and others, to quote only a few. And this is a real concern for probably how we produce science, not only for ourselves and our nice epistemic communities, but how we manage and we reach out more and more, what many of us try to do in different capacities, and many of yours, many of us, but it's not easy, and we know it takes time. We have the impression among colleagues that less and less colleagues want to give interviews to the media, because you waste all an afternoon, 4 or 5 minutes on TV, etc., many reasons. And I think this poses a question of the social, la fonction sociale, as we say in French, and the social role and the democratic role of academics, even though they are not entering into elected politics. Paul, here, do you want to comment on what has been said already? Paul, maybe.
I would like to say one or two things about this. I think, again, I feel strongly for our colleague. These are difficult times, and they're getting more difficult. I think this is the time when need to recognise that many people who come to these conferences are based in universities. Not everybody is, but many people are based in universities. And already our universities have changed a lot. In the old days, they were ivory towers. And we prized our rigour, and I do still. I still believe in being scientific. I still believe in trying to understand through science. And that was the cornerstone of rigour. And I think somehow we thought we had to stay in our ivory tower, otherwise we would lose our rigour. But nowadays, the modern university has to be relevant too. And to be relevant, we have to interact. We have to interact with each other around the world as academics to have a better understanding of how things are developing and continue to develop. And we also have to interact within our countries with other groups, other sections. We can't be an ivory tower, and we have got to interact, but we've got to hold on to the rigour and our desire to be a scientific association.
And it's not easy at all, because when you start to go on a TV show and you want to be rigorous, and you have facing to you people who are populist leaders, etc., and well, it's very complex, isn't it? Geert, do you want to comment on that point? Or?
I think so.
Please do.
I will stand. I think I like this audience here because the center is more populated than the two extremes. And I think that's what we need for the future in Europe and beyond Europe. And I think there are three types to answer this question or this problem for the future of our responsibilities for the future. The first is, and it was mentioned this morning in the plenary panel too, it's our duty to really stand up for democracy, to stand up for the rule of law, to stand up for human rights. If we don't take that position, we can close our books. So that's the first thing I want to say. It's the responsibility of EGPA to stand for that and to make it explicit. Then we come to the real operational things, so to speak. PA versus society, in society, academics and pracademics and practitioners together. I think we should look at comparative issues. In space, within Europe, compare. We have shared problems, we have differentiated solutions. But we have to go beyond Europe, because looking at ourselves can be fun and say, oh yes, look how good we look. We have to compare beyond Europe. And it's a learning exercise. And the learning exercise is important. And it's in two ways what we can learn from others. That's comparing in space. We have to compare in time. We have to compare past, present, and we have to compare ourselves with the future. We have to have ideas about where to go to. And those that know my thoughts, it's about utopias too. Utopia and uchronia. We have to say, where are we going to steer our systems? We have to have a normative position in this. We are social scientists. Yes, we are scientific. Yes, we should be thorough and methodological. But we are in social sciences, so we have to make choices. And I mentioned the choices at the beginning of my intervention. That should be the framework. And that should be the second layer in society, where we interact academics, pracademics, and practitioners, because always we had conferences also in national schools, too, in some cases. So that's also was risk. The third lever for our EGPA and our community is the academic disciplines. Public administration is not a discipline. It's a field. It's a field where academic disciplines come together. And we should be there to host, to bridge, to accommodate, to organize dialogues between the disciplines. And that's easy said, that's not easily done. How many lawyers are here in the room? Don't be ashamed. Luckily, there are lawyers in the room. But we need other disciplines too. I think in PA, certainly under the pressure of public management, we were very skillful to oust the lawyers. But we should bring them back. But of course, they should adjust themselves to also a bit to realities. To say, you know, let's work together. The legal frames are important. And then, of course, political science and the new sciences too, the data sciences, and I shall not mention more. I think these are three elements, so to speak. We should consolidate, and we should be a hosting platform for communication between disciplines. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear Geert. Now I think it's time for the little video that has been prepared on the history of the EGPA.
Would it be possible to say something after?
Yes.
Autumn of September 1974, Speyer, Germany, EGPA held its constituent meeting, a moment that would lead to its official establishment in 1975. European scholars and practitioners came together with a shared purpose to strengthen contacts and exchanges focused on the specificities of public administration in the region.
For 50 years, EGPA has brought people together to rethink public administration in Europe. A journey of knowledge.
Community.
And commitment.
For 5 decades, EGPA expanded across Europe.
And established strong relationships with other major learned societies and regions.
EGPA has remained relevant during critical times.
And is more relevant than ever. What began as a small working group within IIAS has become the major learned society for public administration in Europe.
Its unique permanent study groups cover the most relevant topics in the field, bridging tradition and renewal. EGPA hosts dialogues and special tracks, partnering with distinguished institutions across the globe, and brings together more than 600 participants every year for its annual conference.
EGPA is not just an academic forum. It's a community where researchers become collaborators.
Where young scholars find mentors. Where we grow, belong, and build together.
Celebrating 50 years is just the beginning.
We build bridges across countries, disciplines, and generations.
We are future ready.
We are globally engaged.
And we are human-centered.
Patria, you wanted to add a footnote to what was said.
Yeah, especially, first of all, this is such an inspiring, 50 years and then now 50 more. And one message that has been, I think, that I've heard over and then again now with Geert is this idea of standing up for the rule of law and human rights, but we have to stand together. And I think as learned societies, we need to present a united front, because what we have seen in the history of the world and in the history of authoritarianism is that they can conquer us faster when we are divided. So I think I am very proud, for example, of the relationship that ASPA has had with EGPA, and how we have, how we have maintained it, and how we have this singleness of mind when it comes to the values that we believe really underlie our association, and that we believe that are necessary for a better society. So a united front, as you're saying, is important, because otherwise it's divide and conquer.
Okay, thank you. So, Geert, how has EGPA in the past 50 years contributed to this agenda? Could you please tell us a bit more of this history?
Yes, I think to understand the history of EGPA, you actually have to understand part of the history of the 20th century and how that has evolved. And IAS was founded in 1930, and it was supported by the Belgian government. I'm not mentioning this because I'm myself a Belgian. It was during the League of Nations, where Belgium said we want to contribute to peace. The peace issue was very important. How can we contribute to peace? To have very professional bureaucracies in a democratic context of a state. And so the Belgian government said from now on we host IIS. And then, of course, we think we live in times of turbulence, which is, of course, right. But when you are in the 1930s and you look ahead, then suddenly there is the Second World War, huge turbulence. And after the Second World War, we had the Cold War and we had the decolonization. And so it actually meant that within IAS, the number of countries added and added, which was a very fortunate thing to do, to say we have a shared agenda to build a professional state which is supporting citizens in a legal framework. And within Europe, there was then, because of these numbers of countries that were added to in IAS, to say, we have a European identity. And within Europe, there is a need to create a platform for the European audience and for the European academics and practitioners. And that was when, in 1975, and the video, really, it's a great video, I must say. Congratulations to the Secretariat. I think it's a great video to share. It started in 75, and it is not a coincidence it started in Germany, in Speyer, after all the things that have happened in Europe. And so from there on, it was becoming part of an intellectual project to build capacity in society from the state at all levels with the universities and practice, and to develop it in a professional way. And so you see when EGPA evolved in numbers and in quality, it's very important to see the backbone of EGPA, which are the permanent study groups. At one moment in time, the European Union, the Commission decided to have European money for research. And there was a green book that said, biomedical and technology, they're doing fine. Social sciences are weak because there is no capacity. There is no capacity to write proper projects and to write solid projects. And we had to increase the capacity there. And so the strategy of EGPA has been to create permanent study groups to enhance the capacity to be able to create strong networks, academic networks, to apply for European money, to have outputs of research, to feed this back in publications. Paul will talk about this, I'm sure he will. And so that created a kind of upward spiral of capacity and relevance around topics to do that. And so it's not just the content, the choice of the topics of the permanent study groups, but that's really the backbone, I think, of the conference, and it's also a bit different from other associations and organizations. A second thing is, if you want to have a European voice in the world, and I think we need this, and perhaps we need it even more for the future, you just don't look only in the mirror. You look to others. I mentioned the comparative research. And the dialogues became very important. And a dialogue is not one monologue, and it's not two monologues. A dialogue is really a cross-section and listening to others. And so the strategy of the dialogues was first to start with ASPA, with the Americans. And at a time, actually, where Europeans didn't like the Americans too much. There are some of these fluxes, you know, hate, love, hate, love, hate, love. It was a hate moment at that time to say, you don't dialogue when you love one another. Of course, you dialogue even without words. When there is a kind of downside, you start the dialogue to say, let's talk, let's sit together, let's have a coffee or whatever. And then, so the ASPA was a very important vis-à-vis also to learn from, to professionalize and to exchange. And then, of course, Europe and the US is one part, but the US has another part. It's Central and Eastern Europe. And it was NISPAC, and I welcome also the NISPAC leadership here in the audience. I think NISPAC is a crucial part of Europe, of Central and Eastern Europe. And so the dialogue between EGPA and NISPAC became very important to have this site here. I think it's an important issue. And then there was a third dialogue which we needed in Europe, US, Central and Eastern Europe, the South, the Mediterranean, since the Romans. The Mediterranean became very important. It was a very tough type of dialogue, I must say, because the other side of the Mediterranean doesn't have an organized vis-à-vis. You have to actually look country by country. And it also allowed, on the European side, to really have all the countries of the Mediterranean around the table, which is not increasingly, which is not always possible, and as you know, with the current situations, becomes very problematic. But I think it's essential, because one of the things of EGPA is also to bring people together beyond the Council of Europe and to have these dialogues here. The three dialogues are essential, and Euromed was expanded also to beyond the Euromena here. I think to correlate with the evolution of Europe is important. EGPA has been growing and evolving and correlating with the European project as such. We also had added the accreditation. Quality of education and training becomes very important. And we had a permanent study group to study what is quality and how can we think of education and enhance education here. And the European Association of Public Administration Accreditation, I welcome also the leadership there, has been a crucial element here to extend and to support the education of our civil servants, our students for the future. We also had, I will say, during my presidency, one project that failed. We like to talk about success, but one failed. It's Babel, the Babel project. Because we have 27 countries and we have 23 official languages in the European Union. And if you go further on, it's even more. And we speak English now, and we think we understand one another, and we think we speak well, or English well, don't we? Yes. And so I think the local languages are important. And we have to keep these cultures and our journals our local journals. So the Babel project, I will tell you what the failure was. So was to have a database only with the titles and the abstract in the original and in English, and to bring it together in a database, update it, so people could Google and could go to the website and say, prisons, quality, whatever, and find an article in Finland and an article in Italy and contact the researchers and see how that brings together. Babel has two types of definition. Suddenly, we speak different languages and we understand one another. Or the confusion of Babel, which we have to avoid, of course. EGPA has two official languages, English and French, and that's a historical part, of course, but I think it's important to keep this diversity of languages within EGPA. I think it's a crucial element of our administrative cultures, because that's part of the identity of public administration too, in plural here. I think that's what I'm trying to tell. Thank you.
Merci, mon cher Geert. Paul, how does this success story reflected in the publications domain?
I think I've got the hardest job here. Yes. Yeah. You can imagine over 50 years the number of articles that have been published by the International Review of Administrative Sciences. It's a lot. You can imagine the number of books. I printed them all out, the titles. It's a great deal of books. So I gave up on that idea of trying to highlight some as outstanding or special. And I think I've got this formula for you, that the thing about all the articles in IRS and in the books, both the in-house books we publish and the Palgrave Macmillan series, is that if you look at them, you see that what EGPA has been doing has been evolving. I would say it's been agenda setting, and I would say it's been influential, not episodically, but continuously. And I was looking at how quickly IRAS reacted to developments recently. Where they took, for the IRAS, they took a special issue based on the Athens conference, and there's a curated set of papers based on that conference, picking up the conference theme. So taking the debates that were going on in the study groups and in the plenaries and so on, and pushing it out through the journal that quickly, really quickly. The quickness in terms of being ready for the 50-year celebration with a virtual special issue. And actually, if you look into that, which I did, I looked into the special virtual IRS, and there's some wonderful articles in there, and it shows you what a treasure trove of research and scholarship over the years, not just recently, and it continues. It keeps on evolving. We, as you all know, we try to promote comparative work, but I think we're also at a stage where we're combining the focus on comparative work with deep dives into particular countries and their public administration. 2019, it was a book on Switzerland, and what was wonderful about it, it was in collaboration with the Swiss government. Then, 2 years later, there was a book on public administration in Germany, and what was wonderful about it, in collaboration with government. And Finland, and Italy, there's just no containing the Italians. We're now at 3 volumes of public administration, and it's wonderful, wonderful scholarship. And you know, this sits side by side with this collaborative thing. We need to understand countries deeply, and obviously not just in Europe, but around the world, to enrich our collaborative work. I was looking through some of the books I found interesting, and this is not to say they're the best, and perhaps I shouldn't do this in case it looks like I'm picking the best. But I looked at one that interested me because it had stuff on transformational leadership. It was edited by Victor Beckers and others, called Innovation in the Public Sector, but it had this transformational leadership stuff that I'm still interested in. And it appears this was study group 1. There was another book which I think does ring true for today, is The Integrity of Governance. And this was by Leo Huberts, 2014. And we're not just about talking about public administration, it's also about those values, that integrity that public administration needs. And I'm going to mention Eduardo Ongaro's edited book, Public Administration in Europe, which had contributions from right across EGPA. It was a real collective effort to produce that. And I've been checking into it. Firstly, I've discovered it's very widely accessed. It's used in courses and policy debates. So I think there is a continuing relevance. And I just want to finally, having said that there's this treasure trove in the journal and in the 2-book series that we have, I want to say, just echo, I've been thinking about this. Why is this working so well? Why has it worked so well for a time? And I think we're probably quite strategic. I would say that, wouldn't I? I would say that. But, you know, I think we've found some devices, some mechanisms for focusing the work of European academics in public administration, and they're called the permanent study groups. And we found devices for interacting. One of those is interacting with colleagues around the world. And they're things like the transatlantic dialogues. So, you know, we've organized for this. This is not an accident that it works so well. I should stop there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the 4 of you. I think we are running out of time, so I would like to have the video in memory of Fabienne, Maron, and to end up after it, not by a minute of silence, because she was not so protocol, but a big round of applauses, and then we will run to our panels. Please, the video for Fabienne. to Fabienne. Thank you very much to all, and especially to the guest panelists. Have a nice afternoon. See you at the gala dinner. This conference is dedicated to Fabienne anyway. She's with us in spirit.